I wish there was a little countdown for when I hit that go. It always just all of a sudden is okay. We're here. All right. So welcome back to Data with Direction. Today we have Ramona and Shane back with us. Super excited. Always super fun to have Ramona and Shane with me. And tonight we're going to be talking about different types of data architecture, right? And kind of how you build out your data platform. And everybody has an opinion about this. It's a hot topic right now. You see a lot of conversation about it right now, especially around Medallion. And is Medallion good enough? Is Medallion really even a thing? Is it just a name for something that's always been around? So we're going to talk through some of those things tonight. Shane and I are both going to go through our versions of what we think architecture layers might look like. And Ramona's going to help to keep us on task and ask some really great questions along the way. For those of you that are joining, if you have any questions about what we're talking about, feel free to put them in the comments, and we will get to them as we go through things. So, Shane, Ramona, you want to take a moment, introduce yourselves real quick, and then we can, I'll bring up the sheet.
Sure. So, hi, I'm Ramona Truta. I'm a knowledge architect, and today I'm gonna wear that specific hat and keep the knowledge on track based on my understanding. And I'm trying to be a kind of a bridge builder here, because some of the audience here, I assume, is here to learn, and you, Shane and Chris, you are very technical, so I want to make sure that the novices in our audience will get what you're trying to teach them here. So I'm gonna wear that hat. I will try to wear that hat.
Excellent. Shane Gibson. I think the hat I'm wearing, I wear multiple hats, but the hat I'm wearing today is data architect, data platform architect. And I'm looking forward to Ramona being our semantic layer for our semantic pedantic discussion.
I'm already underwater right now. You already mentioned the unmentionable word. Yes. Okay.
Oh, but I didn't ask you if you were bronze, silver, or gold, or platinum, vibranium, copper.
Yeah, no, but semantic is already it's a hot word. So many are trying to avoid that. So yeah. Nobody can even come. I mean, there's been so many debates around that particular one. So yeah, I would actually like to just start, Shane, since this is the template that you developed. Who is it for, and what should the audience expect to be able to do at the end of this entertaining webinar? So let's give them a shout.
Okay, so it started off for me. So the way it works is I see some stuff happen, I get angry, I chunt it to myself, I mutter, I rail, I write LinkedIn posts about it. And then eventually I get over myself and I'm like, okay, I see a problem, how do I fix it? And so the problem I saw was I've been doing data for 35 years. We have, in my domain, we have always done layered data architectures. Data coming in, we do some stuff to it, we move it left to right, and we found that valuable. When the Medallion architecture came out, it basically said there's 3 layers: bronze, silver, and gold. And what it did, it actually reinvigorated the data market in terms of saying layered architectures are cool. And we had some really good conversations. But when I talked to people about it, I wasn't clear what they were doing. Like, their bronze was my silver was Chris's gold. And so I sat back and said, okay, well, if I was going to go and review or define a data architecture, which I sometimes do, what are the things that I unconsciously decide? Yeah. And then once I worked out what they were unconsciously, how do I make them conscious? And then how do I put them into a template? And that was it, right? It was like, okay, I created a template that could describe a data architecture in a way that I understood, using layers. And after that, I was like, well, it seems to have value. Let's share it and see if anybody else can get some use out of it. So that's kind of the background for it.
So the way you split all these tasks, right, that you consider to be part of each of the layers. So what was your logic behind that? Because, as you said, various people would see it differently. So, were you looking at some sort of mean between what you saw around, or how did you decide? And why should this template be something that people will follow? What makes the distinction between yours and what other practices people have? I think that would need some clarification.
So I haven't found a template like this. It's probably out there, but I spend a lot of time looking for things that are useful, and I haven't found one. And this is not providing a reference architecture, right? This is not saying this is what your architecture should be. This is saying document your architecture in a way somebody else can look at it and go, I think I understand what your architecture is. I think I understand what decisions you made. So when we go through, you'll see that Chris's architecture and mine are very different, but there will be similarities. And then at the end of it, you should be able to say, okay, I can see how Chris's architecture is different to Shane's and where the difference is. And so that's what it should be, is it should allow somebody to come in and take a quick peek and go, I kind of get what you're doing, or I don't, right? Like, why are you doing that there? That is unusual to me. Let's have a conversation about the context of why you decided to do that.
Okay, so you do this, and then what? You have an artifact, and somebody's gonna pick it up, and then what's the next step? I'm really asking these questions for myself as I'm trying to understand this. We had our own debates prior to this debate.
Yeah. So I'll use it if I'm doing a new architecture for a client, I'll use it to start documenting what the architecture looks like. And then we can decide what to build from it. We can start prioritizing. If I'm walking into an organization, I don't understand their architecture, I'll use it to get an artifact that I can say, this is what I think your architecture is. Would you like to confirm that? Have I heard it? I've been testing it with lots of different people, and somebody did the cool thing where they took the template and they actually created a diagram out of it, a map. Yeah. And I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. So the template was an input for them drawing pictures, and those pictures were great because they had clarity. So I'm still early in the template process with this, right? I've kind of built it, tested it a bit, seen some value. Now I want to see if anybody else gets value and where does it go. I'd love LLMs to be able to draw the map for me so I don't have to do it. One of the ones I'm going to probably try on the weekend is give it the template and say, tell me a story, and see what it does. So yeah, we're just early in the process, but hey, sharing is caring, and feedback at this stage is the most important thing.
Okay. Right. Awesome.
So I just want to reiterate that feedback is love. So for those of you that are out there watching, we want feedback. We want interaction and feedback during the session. So if there's something you don't understand, something you think that we missed, something that you think that needs to be there that you just are really passionate about, then be sure to let us know in the comments, and we'll discuss it.
Yeah, don't chunt it to yourself. Chunt her in the chat so we can see it, and then figure out what we missed.
Yeah.
Is chunter actually semantically? Sorry, is chunter just a Kiwiism? Like, do people understand what chunter means?
I don't know the word.
It's when I mumble to myself under the thing going.
Speaking under your breath, right?
Okay. Yeah, but in a negative way and complaining to yourself. That's the definition of chuntering. Sorry.
Yeah. So feel free to complain in the chat for those of you that want to complain about what we're doing. We really do want that feedback. So please let us know what you got going.
All right, should we rip him?
Jump in.
Okay, so it's a Google Sheet, which means it's the easiest way for me to create it. There's a bunch of columns and a bunch of rows, and I've done my best to add some notes, right, with some context around each of the fields and cells. Early draft of those, they need a lot of work. So the first thing I'll do is I'll define my layers in the language I use, yeah? And this is based on our product, Agile Data, right? So we call our first layer landing, which is the first time we grab some data. We call our second layer history. We call our third layer designed. And then we actually have another layer here. I'm just going to copy it. So I'm just copying the whole cells. We have another layer which we call consume. And then we have a last layer which we call cache. All right, so this is the language that me and my co-founder use internally to describe things. So when I talk to Nigel and I go, we're doing something in the design layer, he knows because he's built it with me. He knows what that layer is. If I map that to the Medallion architecture, in my head, I say that an alias for landing and history is what I would see as a bronze layer in Medallion. I would call designed, for me, it's integrated. So I would call that the silver layer. And consume for me is gold. Yeah. And I don't like inventing new metals, although I think I didn't put vibranium in there. That's my standard joke is put vibranium. But cache layer for me is a form of gold with that. So what I've done is just now given you kind of a picture of our 5-layer data architecture that we use in our platform. Chris, do you want to do yours? And then we'll jump to Ramona and she can ask us the good questions.
Absolutely. So for me, I do follow a little bit closer to a traditional medallion layer type architecture when I come into a business. So I do generally look at bronze, right, as your raw layer, right? Just everything that's coming in as is, you're dumping into bronze. Our silver, right, which is our, if I could spell and type, our silver, which is our kind of our cleaned, transformed a little bit. We'll go through some of that other stuff here in a little bit, but basically just the way that you've seen silver before, standardized and cleansed data sets. We're applying some business rules, some naming standards, data type enforcement, maybe some masking for PII fields. Then we have, this one might be new for some of you, a copper layer here. And copper for me is this is the layer for all of our data that's going to be pushed to another system. This is not for somebody else to consume. It's not for another business or Power BI or Looker to consume. This is stuff, for instance, that you're pulling in data, you're enriching it, and then you're pushing that data back out to another business system, whether it's Salesforce, whether it's your ERP system, your MES system, whatever the case may be, your HRIS system sometimes, whatever the case may be, right? And then finally, we have our gold. Oh, you know what? I do have these are the great things, is that, sometimes on the fly, you realize that you do have a 5th layer. So our gold, which is our curated, aggregated, all those things that gold to be, for those of you that have studied Medallion architecture. So subject area, sometimes these are subject area marks usually. Schema is a little bit different than maybe some of the other layers. We're looking usually for star schema, normalized data, sometimes data vault type data sets, depending on what the business needs are, and optimized for BI consumption, right? And then finally, we do have, I'm going to use the word that Ramona doesn't probably want. We have our kind of our BI presentation / semantic layer, right? I don't call it BI presentation layer.
I have nothing against that. It's just I have heard even earlier today I watched a webinar, and that was semantic layer this or that or the other, like 7 different interpretations of it. So I am agnostic. That's the thing. It's just I'm relaying what I've witnessed for years, including a very intense conversation between high-level professionals who could not agree even what semantics is. Yeah, Shane is laughing because he was there as well, so he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
I need to introduce you into my BI semantic Medallion data product layer. Yeah, because
Oh.
that's getting all the contentious words in one sentence. All right. So before we have a conversation about this, the interesting thing for me was Chris, as he was typing in the layers, was doing quite a descriptive story about what went in them. And when I was listening to him, I'm translating that into some things I understand. So he's like, oh, this one's a dimensional model. Yeah, this one's a PI with data masking. And what we've done down the left-hand side is over time, I've taken those words and said they're important. And I've given a row for each of those things that either I use or somebody like Chris use would to describe how a layer is the same or different. The things that he would use to describe what that layer is and it isn't. So is that layer using dimensional modeling or data vault or both? Yeah. And so that was a great example, and it wasn't scripted, of Chris kind of just telling what would happen from a normal data architect of how they describe their layers. And then you've got to sit there and go, what the hell did he just say? Right. If you're not recording it or LNMing it. So that's the point of the template, right? It's to take all that knowledge Christus gave us and codify it into a repeatable template that any of us can look at and understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Or to your point, feed into an LLM and get the LLM to explain it to you.
Yeah.
In more plain language than you might be able to look at it and read it.
Yeah. All right. So Ramona, questions?
Well, everything was pretty clear to me. Like, I do have a question about your history layer, Shane.
Yeah.
Because you had landing and history, and they are both in the bronze. So landing of data, I suppose. So that would be the raw ingestion, right? But what is history here? That's if anybody has that question.
So why don't we see how we go at the end of this, and if you can tell me the difference between the landing layer and the history layer and why we have them separate. Yeah. So as we describe it, let me ask you at the end of that, without giving you the answer, and go, why do we do it this way? Like, why have we separated it out as two layers in our language, and why are they different?
I'm trying to understand what history means in this context, not why you separated them. So because if I understand what history is about, then I understand why they are separate. So history of what? Of data, or is it a lineage? What exactly is history in this context?
It's history of data. So what we do is our history layer holds raw data. It holds the data from the source system. It holds it historized. So when we see a new record come through, we just rack and stack it into that layer. So we keep all history over all time. And it's immutable, right? We never change it. So we have this place that we go to that we can rebuild from there right whenever we feel like it. We could actually delete every other layer and rebuild it from history, and we would get the same answer. And that's an architectural decision we made. Yeah, is that we protect history like nothing else. We treat it as our pet, and all the other layers we treat like cattle to a degree. Yeah. Now, sometimes there's a whole lot of reasons where we actually treat it more pettish, but we basically treat the other layers as if we could destroy them and redeploy them from history.
Okay, so then landing is what then?
So this is okay. So let's get through 4 or 5 of them, and then I'll get you to tell me what the difference between landing and history is, and why, and what the difference is, and then I'll tell you why.
Okay, and to Chris, I have a question about that copper layer sitting between silver and gold. So is sitting in between them, does that mean that copper has everything that silver has? So is that the intention of being situated there?
So the intention is that it's beyond the raw layer, right? It has it's gone through all of the sanitation that your silver layer does, and it's ready to be passed into another system, right?
Okay.
And then those artifacts are set in a way that they're laid out in a way and modeled in a way that we just push that data directly into those systems, right?
Okay.
But there's an interesting question that I don't have in this sheet, which is, if I asked you, Chris, if I look at the data in silver and I look at the data in copper, even though they may be structured different, will I see all the data in silver and copper, or will I only see a subset of the data in silver and copper?
So I'll say that you will only you won't necessarily have every field and every table that's in silver in copper, right? It's
Right.
only the data that's specifically being pushed to those other places.
But it's a subset of it, right? So the silver is the superset, and in copper, in copper you would have a subset of it. Only the attributes that are needed.
Correct.
But
so
all
if you
the rows, right? I mean, sorry, it's like it's clear to me what it is. So I think I'm only complicating it by keep asking questions.
No, you're not. You're making it really good, right? So if you go back to my one, Chris. Yeah. The only place we have all the data is history. We only move data from history to design to consume if we're going to use it. Yeah. So Chris's silver, where he holds everything, is my history.
Okay.
Yeah. But Chris is going to be designing data in his silver, and we're not designing data in history. Yeah. Good question. So there's a question there about any form of data, structure or unstructured. Yes, although my background is structured data, I come from a data warehouse background. So the way we architect is particularly designed for structured and semi-structured data. And by semi-structured data, I mean CSV, JSON, XML. Our architecture kind of works for voice, video, and those kind of things. But I think if I had a primarily unstructured use case, I would probably change our architecture. Yeah. I'd at least review it. Yeah. Because it's been designed primarily for structured data. Yeah. And I think that's important when you look at somebody's architecture is say, what was the context? Like what was the core foundational thing you designed for? Speed, storage, cost, structured, unstructured, because that influences how you architect. Yeah. I got a question for Chris though.
Yes, sir.
Like how the hell can you go from silver to copper? Right? Like bronze, silver, copper, gold. Like you can't have copper.
Copper would come before bronze, right?
It should have been. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Or you're saying feeding data to systems is less valuable than feeding it to humans, which is anyway.
And Shane, actually, to your point about what's that? Verbanium. So I read a paper with somebody talking about the platinum layer. Yeah. So there is something on top of gold.
Yeah. I've got platinum in there. I didn't put vibranium in there because that doesn't exist. It's Wakandian, right? Okay, right. So let's carry on. So the next row, right, and this is where we get really interesting because I'm embedding data governance and I'm embedding architecture and technology in all these questions. So this first one is actually a governance question. And so what I'm asking is, for the landing area, do I have to use it? Yeah. Or can I use it? Or am I advised to use it? So for us, our ones are enforced, right? This is how we work. And one of the tricks of the template, if you ever use it, is you can basically just copy and paste the cell when you've chosen it. So you don't have to use the drop downs because they get annoying after a while. So what we say is we always land the data into landing first, and then we move it to the right, and we always have to go through those layers. There is no way for us to take the data out of landing and move it directly to designed or directly to consume without moving it through history. Yeah, and that's an architectural decision that we made, right? Because there's a whole lot of benefits to the way we build our platform based on that. So that's the first one. Is like, what are the rules? Do I have to use it? If you're in an organization with a big team, can I jump layers? Is it okay? So Chris, what do you got on that one?
Okay, that's a great clarification. I think of that when I originally filled out this, I misunderstood that the meaning of some of those, and so first I suppose I need to run through here real quick, and the alias I suppose I should throw in here real quick.
Shane, while Chris is filling his template, I want to point out that in the legend that you have for each of the cell, you have all the definitions there. So I was very confused because I could read everything, and it's not individuated for the particular cell. It says, oh, it has all the definitions there. Enforced, optional, something, and all right, all the options. So it's they are all displayed when you click on that.
Yeah, so there's a dictionary tab where all the values are surfaced, and I was trying to use hover over notes so you didn't have to go and look at it, and I'm not sure it's working. Yeah, I mean, Google Sheets
it shows all of them and actually even when you filled it in, it showed all of them.
It only shows for that cell.
See, but there are three different options, right? And they are all displayed at once. So it almost looks to me first time it looked like, oh, all of them, or is it the first one, or so? This is just, I know it's work in progress. I just wanted to mention.
Yeah, look, I think the hover over notes description stuff kind of sucks, but it's Google Sheets. So if people see lots of value in it, then I'm hoping that somebody's going to become, who's a good vibe coder, will help build, a tool online that we can use for this rather than Google Sheets. But the only rule, if you want to do that with me, is it has to be open source and no paywall. Yeah. So these templates should be freely available. We should help, sharing is caring.
Yeah.
Is love.
You can make the drop down, and then it's clear that you select one of the options.
So there is a drop down. When Chris clicks on that, it gives them.
No, So.
Yeah. So it's the notes. It's me appending notes to each cell that's making it complex and confusing for you. So that's good feedback. So I might remove the notes because they're a pain in the ass to create anyway. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So running through my governance policy. So kind of similar to Shane with a couple of exceptions, right? Is that I would enforce all, require all of these layers, right? Except for until you get to copper, right? Bronze, it has to come into bronze. That raw data has to come into bronze. That's where it lands, and you have to use it. And then you do your transformations into silver. It has to be used before it can be pushed out to the general public for them to consume. Copper is obviously optional because that is only for, you could skip copper and never touch it. And actually the expectation is that most of your business, most of your stakeholders, they don't even know that copper's there, right? With the exception of those people that own those systems where we're pushing data to. Gold, again, is more is enforced, right? And then obviously the presentation layer is advised to have a presentation layer to manage your presentation piece, and so that things are consistent and you're presenting data in a consistent manner.
Actually, can you jump back to mine, because I just need to change one of mine because you just reminded me that I got it wrong. So for us, the caching layer is optional. We only use that with our customers where we want to save money in a specific use case. So if we want to reduce our cost, we will introduce the caching layer because it reduces our query costs. Where we have small volumes of data or small query costs, we don't introduce it because the cost of turning that layer on is higher than the money we save by caching that. So, yep, cool. Right, Ramona, what do you want to talk about in terms of governance?
I think I only have a question for Chris. Maybe it's my misunderstanding of what that copper layer is, but if it's a subset of the silver, doesn't already inherit, I mean, the governance piece and everything isn't in that layer already, so I don't see that distinction. Like, it was produced following all the silver rules, right, to which governance was applied. So
this is where it gets interesting, because the definition of governance that we use is I have to move data through that layer before it gets to a layer past it on the right.
I think it's I was also a little confused myself when kind of thinking about that and the options available as well. But I get it now, right? It is, are we going to govern that data is flowing through this juncture in order to move forward, right?
So what word would you use? Because what I'm looking for is, can I move data directly into this layer, or do I have to move it through the layer before it? Yeah, that's the pattern.
So what's the answer? Because if you move it through silver to get to copper, and then you move it again, I think this is the distinction. But maybe it will be clarified to the end. And I guess this applies to the entire pipeline of the entire pyramid, or whatever you want to call this, cake.
But what's your question?
Huh?
I was going to say, Ramona, you didn't quite finish your sentence there. So, because that's going to help clarify the term we need to use for this specific set of governance. Yeah, because it's not data governance.
Okay, so then what is it? Maybe you can give okay. Did you explain it and I missed it?
Yeah. So when you hover over this, it says the use of data layer is enforced and must be used. It is advised and should be used, or it's the use of a layer. So it is talking about layer governance as opposed to like data protection governance, right? We're not controlling who can access the data. We're talking about, does the data have to flow down this path in order to move forward? And so from my perspective, like for copper, the data could stop there. Like you could go from silver to gold and it never be in copper.
Yeah, I got that part.
Yeah. So that's what we're trying to determine. Whereas if you go back to mine, you can't jump from landing to consume. You have to move the data through history, designed, and get to consume.
I think
choice.
I think I got this from the example and from what Chris mentioned. So it's not enforced because you can skip that layer to go to gold. Okay, but see this. Okay.
So what 3-letter words would we use to describe that pattern as a policy, right?
No. Well, you gave it a lot of thought. So it's just I'm trying to, I'm all about the mental model. So I'm trying to understand for me what we're talking about here. So now through the example is much clearer. So
the test is Chris read it. Chris did this without me, right? He just picked up the template and used it without me telling him any of the background. And he said, "Oh, that's not what I thought." And then you have come in and gone, "Actually, that's not what I thought." So that means layer governance policy is the wrong term. Yeah, it's not.
It should be defined what it means, or I don't know.
I think that now that I understand it, like the other way around, I understand what we're talking about now, so I could see where you get layer governance policy.
Exactly.
But I think that people in general will see governance
and think of that.
Almost not see those other two words.
I agree. That was exactly what I was about to say. So.
So one of the good things is the whole thing.
I don't know, maybe layer enforcement policy or something like
layer movement policy. Layer movement
through the right. Yeah.
So we do have a couple questions here from Rita. As a novice engineer, where would I use the medallion level architecture? And so the architecture that we're talking about, right? This is when you're initializing and kind of setting up your data platform, right? Whether that be in Databricks and like Unity Catalog, or you're doing it in Snowflake, or you're doing it in Synapse, or wherever you're doing it, whatever your, engine of choices there, platform of choices there, you're setting up these different layers in order for that data to flow through. For instance, when I'm doing it in Databricks and I'm in Unity catalog, I'm creating a catalog with the names of each of these headers that we've used for our layers patterned rules here. And so they each have a different catalog, and then within those catalogs there are schemas, and then the schemas obviously have their objects from their tables and volumes. So that's kind of physically where that data lies. Shane, do you have a different concept there? I wasn't sure.
So I've never seen anybody do an architecture that's not layered.
Yeah.
Because if you say to me you've got a non-layered architecture, what you're telling me is you've got one storage area, everything's in there, and there is no structure. Yeah. Okay, I have seen that every now and again, but it's very unusual.
I was going to say.
Yeah. And so we just got to remember that Medallion, the idea of bronze, silver, and gold is just articulating some terms for a layered architecture. That layered architecture has been around for 40, 50 years. But the fact that we get Medallion in these bronze, silver, and gold means actually we've reinvigorated a language to describe why there's value in this. Yeah. So, yeah. So the only time you wouldn't use it, even if you're an analyst working on your own, you still structure things to make your life easier later. Yeah.
Yes. And I would add, back in the day, and Shane, you and I had talked about this a while back, before we had Medallion, the word for it, we've always had a staging area and a production area, and even like an aggregated refined area, and usually some type of visualization area, whether it was SSRS or crystal reports, depending on how old you are and how far back you want to go. But there was always those kind of layers.
Yeah. So out of interest, can you remember what the first term was that you used? I seem to remember we used to call it persistent staging. We used a lot. And there's another one that we used to always call it. I can't remember. Oh, raw. Yeah. So for me, this used to always be persistent staging, or raw was kind of the first layer that we used to do. What about you? Was there what was the
term? It was the persistent staging area. It was always what we called it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Raw. I never thought it is raw, right? Because we usually didn't do a whole lot of it. I mean, sometimes we did some transformation before it hit it there. But raw, I didn't even think about connecting the word raw to it until I started looking at it being called Medallion Architecture,
Yeah. I'm looking forward to what other names we've missed, right? Like what other names do people call their things?
So a very detailed Google sheet, very important. How this applies to ETL or ELT within the, and we're going to get there. So I'm going to hold this question because that is something that hopefully we're going to get to as we go through the sheet today.
But yes, it is a very detailed sheet because data architectures are typically very detailed, whether you admit it or not. Yeah.
I just think we need to speed up things a little bit because we have less than an hour from our design time. So
the key thing is we may not get to the end of the rows. Yeah. Because that's okay. Because we're trying to show how the template works and the patterns and have a conversation around it. And it's not a training course. I've written an article on kind of the simple ways of filling it out. All right. So let's go to the next one. Okay. So the next one is another governance question. Do we have PII data stored in this area? And if we do, is it mastered? Right. So for us, we store it. We have it in every layer. And we mask it everywhere, actually, except for the landing. So if our customers want us to, we will hold PIO data for them, and then in the landing, it's raw, and so we do some stuff around that, and then we mask it in every other layer if we need to. Yeah, so that's how we deal with PII data in our layered architecture. What about you, Chris? What would you normally do?
And for us, for me, very similar, right? Because it's raw, because bronze is, again, this is our kind of both our raw slash where is raw? Alphabetical order. Raw slash persistent staging area. So yeah, it contains PII. It's not masked. And then really throughout the rest of it's going to be masked, right? Because we don't want to expose that risk, and because of things like GDPR, right? I mean, you need to protect that customer privacy and customer private information.
Now, what that tells us is that for both our architectures, we are going to deal with security and access and a whole lot of other things, backup and recovery, slightly different for our first layer than we are for the rest of our layers, because our first layer now contains more dangerous data.
Yes,
because it's not masked. Yep.
Because
So we have a whole lot of implications around that layer now that is different to every other layer we've just described.
And I'll reiterate, maybe for those of you that are listening, is that, you know, bronze, if you mask your data in your bronze layer, you could never use it for anything. If you need it for something, you don't have it. If you need to validate something, you don't have it. So it generally will come into your bronze layer as raw, because your raw layer, whatever you're going to call it, is usually like for like with the source, at least for me.
Yeah, we'll get to that one in a minute. Okay, does that make sense?
No questions here. Good. I mean, it was very clear. We clarified the previous one, so this was just common sense.
Okay, right. The next one is one that needs some work, right? Because it's conceptual modeling, not physical modeling. Yeah, so we have another row for physical modeling. And what I'm asking is, when you conceptually model the data in your organization, what pattern or technique do you use? Now, the problem I have is I can describe a number of physical modeling techniques. I can describe data vault, activity schema, third normal form, you know, those kind of things, because they're a form of physical modeling. Yeah. Mm-hmm. When I go looking for conceptual modeling patterns, I struggle. Right. So I'm a fan of Beam from Lawrence Core. I'm a good friend of Remco with his Elm stuff. We do it slightly differently in our product and the way we do it. But I struggle with this differentiation between conceptually modeling techniques and patterns and physical modeling. So when I struggle, I make it ugly. So what I did was I put all the physical ones in here and I put all the conceptual ones in here. Because when I ask somebody how they conceptually model, I will often hear dimensional. Yeah, they actually draw a star schema in a document before they build it physically on the database, right? So for us, what we do is our landing is independent native objects. What that means is whatever the model is from our source system, we land it there and it looks exactly like our source. We don't change the model at all. And so is our history, right? The tables look like the structure of the source. If it's a nested JSON object, that's what we're getting in there, right? If it's one big table, if it's a relational model. Our designed layer, we use a version of Data Vault. And because Data Vault is quite opinionated about what Data Vault is and isn't, then we actually have done a hybrid, which we call the Agile Data Process. And then the way we conceptually model based on one big table. So we will design our conceptual model based on big wide tables, right? It's like, how many of those big wide tables do I need? And we don't model the cache layer, right? We just think about that later as a physical thing. We don't think about it as a design up front. So that's how we do it. Chris, how did you go with this one, given the fact that it's conceptual, not physical?
Yeah. So, I mean, pretty similar, right? I mean, again, your bronze layer is going to be your raw data. So it's coming in like for like. It's just the independent native objects. You're feeding it right in, however it's coming from the source. The silver, generally, I'm looking at that to be a little bit more dimensional. Sometimes, where'd dimensional go? Yeah, dimensional. Maybe not all the way into it. Really, I mean, as far into facts and dimensions as we could get, right? you don't always get there, and sometimes there's a little bit of a mesh in between, right? But generally trying to push it that direction. Copper is more that one big table, right? Because it is exactly what that source system needs, right? Or not source, it's exactly what that destination system needs. So it's just one big table, and we're pushing that table. For gold, a little, it's still that one big table, sometimes star schema, depending on what the needs of the business are, right? If are some very specific needs of the business, then we're going to lean a little bit more towards one big table. If it's something where maybe the tables will be used across multiple reports or across multiple things, we'll go the more kind of star schema so that people can do that on the presentation, do the kind of semantic model on that presentation layer. And then the presentation layer, again, similar to gold, is going to be one big table and or that star schema piece.
So just on that, because I got struck with this when I was testing it with somebody the other day. So when I say unified star schema, what I'm actually talking about is the modeling technique from Francesco Papanini and the Papanini Bridge that him and Bill Inman developed just lately, because that's called the unified star schema. But I have a funny feeling you're talking about dimensional star schemas, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes. Kimball. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
The more the Kimball stuff.
Yep. Okay. So I need to go again. That's good feedback. I need to go in and maybe I do dimensional star schema, or maybe I do Kimball. So I can change that list and see if that fixes my problem, because you're not the first person to pick the unified star schema, thinking it's the original star schema pattern, not the Papanini Bridge one. Thank you. Good testing.
Right. There we go. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Ramona, your turn.
Well, you should change the name, because none of these are conceptual modeling patterns. Conceptual modeling patterns would be ER diagram or UML, not what you put here. So you should change that name, because it's not conceptual.
But see, that's how you map or diagram the model. So when I say independent native object, conceptually, what I'm saying when I conceptually model is I don't do any work, right? I say,
Shane, that is how you internalize it, but not everybody has your model. So, concept model. Oh, it's concept modeling or conceptual modeling. Okay.
It's concept modeling, because remember there was that post where somebody tried to describe the difference between concept modeling, conceptual modeling, and something else, and Juha quite rightly said, I don't care what word you use, it's all the same thing.
Well, you're supposed to be able to say what are the entities. So I can push it and say, okay, the entity is the native object. I can kind of see that there. But
good. So you've reinforced the thing I opened with, which is
you started with it. You started with it, right? So
needs work.
So you have to I don't know, think about how much. I think, I don't know, maybe have a conversation with Juho Korpela. He's doing a lot of conceptual modeling, so maybe he can recommend something. But I would say that if you leave it with that name and fill it out the way you did, then
it's wrong. So we need to iterate this. I mean, one of the books I'm going to write is business concept modeling, right? But I haven't written that book yet, and I don't have the concept for it in my head. So so this one we need to solve, right? So this needs more work. Cool, good, right? Okay, let's move on to the next one then. So the next one is data persistence. Yeah. So
No, okay. I was just
yes, somebody's got the answer. They're going to point me to a concept modeling repo, and I can go.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So for this layer, is data persisted? Is it transient? Is it virtualized? Is it in memory, or is it other? Yeah. So what are the rules of the game? And so in this case, we persist the data. This one, in history, we persist it. In design, we will either persist it or virtualize it, depending on the cost profile of the data. Yeah, so we make a cost and a performance-based decision on how we structure that data. In our consume layer, we will either persist it, virtualize it, or make it in memory. Yeah, so again, we do that. And then in our caching layer, because we use a certain tool, it's virtualized in memory, right? So this is how we describe the storage of the data, right? The behavior of that storage. What'd you get, Chris?
So for me, also like your raw is persisted. It's not transient. Silver is going to be persisted. Your copper is going to be persisted or transient, depending on the needs of that source system and how we need to push it. Gold is going to be persisted, and then your presentation layer, I suppose it might depend on the specific tool that you're using, but could be virtualized. Suppose it could be persisted depending on how you're setting up your reporting.
And so when I see this architecture, right, and you tell me you're on Snowflake and you tell me that your costs have gone up through the roof, yeah, I'm going to go and look and I'm going to say, oh, that gold layer, right? Is there any chance we can make that virtualized with a separate warehouse instance to reduce those costs, right? So you're giving me some hints of when I want to change something for whatever reason, we can then have a conversation, because I'm going to point to that one and go, if we virtualize that, if your problem's cost and we virtualize that, does that make your cost go up or down? Yeah. Whereas I know if I touch your silver layer and virtualize that, which is where you're doing all your heavy transformations, which we'll get to in a minute, I know that my ability to influence your costs is less there. But I know from experience that virtualizing your gold may or may not save you money. Does that make sense?
Right. And to be fair, we do have some materialized views in gold, right? Depending on what those needs are. But because of some of the aggregation and transformation that has to happen, I have found that depending on the heavy lifting that is occurring there, sometimes it's better to persist that data and go ahead and transform it in batch type, batch and streaming type. Words aren't escaping me, but yeah.
So you've made a decision based on your context of what is the best pattern to apply to that layer for a whole bunch of reasons, right? And then, you know, a friend of mine once says to me on a regular basis, opinions are like arseholes, everybody's got one. That's right. And so I can say, oh, my opinion, but what happens is my opinion is about your data persistence in the gold layer. Yeah. My opinion is not about your data persistence in bronze or silver. So I'm pointing to a cell and saying, let's have a conversation about that one thing, which is still a big thing, right? But it's that language becomes shared now, because you're not misinterpreting me and I'm not misinterpreting you, right? And that's part of the value I found with the template, is I can point to a cell and have a conversation about that cell, and that saves me hours of pain. So that's the point.
So we have a great question here. What is data persistence, and are you referring to what is happening internally within, say, BigQuery? Right. BigQuery is actually a perfect example for you, right? Because you're using GPT.
Can you go to the dictionary page for me, please?
Absolutely.
So in the dictionary page, if you go right to the top, and you look at data persistence, I have tried to create a plain English description of what I mean by data persistence with a little help from my LLM friend. So that for that, I've said whether data in this layer is temporary, cached, or permanently stored. Yeah. So when I say persisted, I mean it's stored on disk permanently. If you scroll down and you get to the value lookups, I've had a go at saying persisted, and the problem is I've done what all people who are bad at defining definitions is. I've used the key term as the description of the key term, right? So persisted data is persisted in this layer. Yeah, that's not overly helpful. But this is where I need help, right? So I need
Right.
to say, what could we write in there that explains to somebody what the difference between persistent and transient is?
And
Now,
sorry, go ahead.
there you go.
I was going to say, so maybe in more plain terms, persisted for me is like it lives there, like it's static, like not static, but it is not transient. It's not temporary. There was a time when, for example, staging would have been temporary. The data comes in, whatever that batch of data is coming in, you're processing it, you're moving it, you're clearing out staging, and that would be transient. That would not be persisted. Persisted means the data comes in, it gets appended or generally appended into a table, and you're not truncating, you're not deleting what's already there. Sometimes you're doing an update, sometimes you're doing some type of merge function so that you're updating, but generally you're appending data, and it's persisted. It's not temporary.
It's something that is not in memory and it's on a storage place, right?
Yeah.
It's not ephemeral. So the opposite of it would be ephemeral. So
yep. Or transient. So in BigQuery, what that means is I am going to land a table. I am never going to have a view.
Yep.
Yeah. If I say it's persistent.
Yep.
Because the view is virtualized.
View would be virtualized.
Now, Patrick Lager on LinkedIn came back and he had, because he's an incredibly experienced guy in this area, and we had a really good conversation around the change data capture one, which is another one that I struggle with. And he's writing an article about that because it's been kind of itching him for a while. One of my thoughts is when people write really good content that actually describe what a thing is with such clarity that you can read it and go, yes, I know what that is. We should probably put a link from here to that authoritative source, right? So if somebody writes an article about what persisted data is in this context, then we just link to their article. And if you want to, you can go and read some more context, because I can't fit it in this little box without making the box too big. Yeah. So what do you think about that? Was that a pain in the bum to have to go somewhere else to find true definitions?
No, I think that, especially like you said, if we find something that is like a pristine, clean, clear explanation, simple to understand, then why recreate the wheel? You link to that source. That way you're, because I know that you are too. We're big about giving credit where credit is due, right? And none of us are here to be movie stars of data. We're here to and we all learn from each other. I mean, that's the name of the game.
And if you're looking for a role of a person that would be really good at describing something, that would be something like a knowledge architect, right? They'd be really good at writing these articles on getting absolute clarity of what a thing is a thing versus not. He says, looking at Ramona.
No, see, because we're old school, we don't have a difficulty with this, because we had we learned on little memory, little hard drive. So if we didn't do Control S to save our work, it will be lost. And we learned the hard way what persistence is. So that's it.
Yeah,
I was thinking about the D in acid and that durability, right? So, but I think durability is a lot more, well, it has to have to do with transactions. So it has to complete the transaction. So it's a bit stronger and more constraints. But we internalized persistence because that's how we learn, right? If your computer crashes or something, or that's it. But now we are used to just work on cloud and everything. We don't have to worry about that. So it's hard to make that transition.
And I like the when you think about like Excel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now there is kind of in memory stuff, right? If Excel crashes, you could bring it back up and it has a list of these are the things that were open when you crashed, and I've temporarily saved these files for
And
you.
you restore it from there, exactly.
You restore it from there, and that's a miraculous thing in comparison to when we were all younger and just started. When Excel crashed, you potentially lost.
Bye-bye.
It was gone. There was no recovery.
With Google Sheets, where's my save icon? Where's my diskette to say that I'm writing that data persistently to the little floppy disk in the device I don't have anymore? So, but you're right, Ramona, in that, I just take for granted that persistence is a thing that I've known for years, and therefore I don't need to explain it. But this is where, use by the community means we need to understand what to explain more.
Of course. And it's great that it was asked because we took it for granted. It's absolutely great.
Yeah, so as Chris says, feedback is love. All right, let's rip over, and I got two more before I can get Ramona to tell me the difference between landing and history. So the next one is storage technology. Yeah, what technology? So we've done a little bit of governance, we've done a bit of way of working, and we've done a bit of technology, and we're doing another technology thing. So for us, the data storage technology for our landing area is Google Cloud Storage, and we're big Google fans. We use BigQuery for that one. We use BigQuery for that one. And when we need to, we use Google BI Engine for that one, right? So that's the technology choices we have in those layers, which means we never hold data and landing in BigQuery. It's always in Google Cloud Storage. Yeah. Chris, what do you got?
So for those of you that watch my videos, you probably know that I am a big Databricks fan. And I have this beautiful, nice, pretty new Databricks mug.
Sorry, can I just say I'm a really big Google fan, and I've got my bottle that I bought myself.
we're missing somebody from Azure here.
Right?
No, we're not.
So that being said, data storage technology is going to be other here because you didn't put anything about Databricks in here for me. So other, and I'm gonna describe other, right?
Okay, so hold on. So if you go across to the look, this is a good test. Go across to the lookups.
Yep.
And then go across to find the column that says data storage technology, and then you put Databricks in there. And I do apologize, that was not on purpose. So sorry, Databricks team. And if you go back to the template, that should turn up now as a list of value. However,
I actually did that for another thing too. Yeah.
It doesn't turn up in the glossary, in the dictionary. You have to go and do some manual adding rows and that for it to turn up there magically. So people can update the things. And as Chris said, feedback is love. Just send one of us a link, a note to say that's missing, and we'll add it to the master template so that everybody else can get that option. Sorry, interrupted you there, but important to show how you edit it.
You're good. This is not Databricks. This is Power BI. So generally, so in Databricks, just as a real quick, Palantir Foundry for those of you that look at Eric here for the we got Rita saying GCP for the win, and we've got Eric here that's a Palantir fan.
Yeah, can I? One of you two have to put that in there because ethically, I'm not putting it in my spreadsheet. So, but that's a personal choice.
Nice. We don't have time for this story really, but I used Palantir. Lord, it was probably 2014 was my first experience with a Palantir platform, and I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Anyways. We're going to move on to Databricks. So I do love Databricks, in my opinion, much better than Palantir. But for the bronze layer, like sometimes it is the sometimes it's like Parquet files or CSVs that we're landing in a volume within Unity Catalog. Sometimes it is we're pulling from another database source and we're putting it into a structured table, a delta table within our Databricks catalog. But either way, it goes into Databricks just as a explanation of what kind of layer of Databricks that looks like. Silver, this is structured, right? So these are our delta tables. And so I think that it's the storage format.
Because I remember why I didn't add Databricks. It wasn't because I forgot. So if you go into Silver and you drop it down, we should see delta in there, or do we not? Did I put delta in there?
Nope.
No, in the data storage technology box.
Yes. So delta is here.
Okay. So I put it in the next one, which was the storage format. Okay. Yep. All right. My bad.
So I'm probably getting ahead of myself with the story, talking about storage.
No. I was just, you triggered my question about, did I put delta in that row or did I not? And the answer was I didn't, because it's the next row. Yes. Thank you.
Yes. No, you're good. You're good. And then the rest of these, right? Silver, copper, gold, we're talking delta, right? And then obviously the presentation layer is Power BI. Generally, I have one client that loved Tableau, and so they stuck with Tableau. But yeah, so that's that. And we have a couple of comments. Sorry, the file you've requested does not exist. I think that's in reference to the Palantir comments. And my project is about to pilot it, and I hate it too. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad that although you called it number one, that you hate it too. So thanks. Good comments. Okay, Ramona, I think it's your turn to ask questions.
These are so technical that I trust that you put in there. Well, I mean, this comes with the experience and expertise. So you put there, Chris, because yours is right on the screen right now, Databricks. So then you mentioned Delta and all the other components of Databricks. So it's safe to assume that somebody working with it would know what it is, but for a novice, is maybe not that clear. So that if there is any comment I would make is those clarifications. But then again, how detailed do you want to go, and who's gonna use this? We can go into the nitty gritty and to which level, etc. So at this level, I think it should be fine. Yeah.
And I think, to that point about feedback, Shane, I think that maybe I would like to see in here, and maybe it belongs more in storage format, right? Mm-hmm. Unity catalog, volume, those types of things, right?
And the more established technologies, right? Because things evolve so much, and they are on a rampant buying spree and keep integrating and all of that. So it's
and it's hard to keep up. And also, I'm not a Databricks expert. I don't use Databricks. So I can read the documentation and try and infer what the words I should use in each of those rows. I can LLM it and hope like hell it doesn't hallucinate. But if we treat it as a community template, then Chris gets to fill out all the options for Databricks, and we find the Azure Synapse person and the Azure Fabric person, because they're different, and we get them to put it in. We find the IBM person. We find the SQL Server person from old school.
Maybe the Fabric person we could leave out. And the Palantir person. I think we found
because actually no, because when my standard joke used to be, we'll just put PowerPoint in there, not Fabric, right? Because that's what it was. But when we did that podcast a little while ago, I asked you, is Fabric real enough now that actually you can implement it? And you said yes. You said it's 80% good enough now to So, okay.
It seems to be a big push in that direction, and they got a lot of AI support and whatnot. So, anyways, let's move on to the next.
Okay,
that's a whole nother episode.
Okay. So when we store data in Google Cloud Storage, Google Cloud Storage really is just a bucket, right? Think of it as a folder that I can put some stuff in and technology that supports it. So the actual data storage is we store objects as CSV, we store them as JSON, and we store them as Parquet. Yeah. So that's if I go into my buckets, those are the file formats that I would see. that we allow in our platform. And then we've got native, and actually we have unstructured stuff in there, but I won't go there. And then native, and what that means is we're actually using the whatever Google used. We don't see it, right? I mean, they use I know what they use. Yeah, they've got a whole lot of technology under there. I can't remember what it's called, Colossus and some other stuff, and the way that makes it fast. But I don't get to choose or see that. I push something to BigQuery, and it stores it in its native format, and I don't see that native format. But when I push it to Google Cloud Storage, I get to choose what format it's stored in. Yeah. So Chris, do you want to do yours? Because this is, I think, where you get that extra level of detail from Databricks of all the choices you have, eh?
Yeah. And like I mentioned a minute ago, bronze gets a lot of that data gets stored in a volume, right? Some of it gets stored in a volume, which is just a folder structure, right? It is your GCS, it is your ADLS, it is your S3 type container. But so it could be CSV, it could be JSON, it could be Parquet, and it could be put into a Delta table, right? If it's coming from another structured format, it could go directly into a Delta table. And so again, for Databricks, Delta is the table format for Unity Catalog, or for, if you're still on old school Databricks, using a version from before Unity Catalog, and you're maybe on not MapReduce. It is
Hadoop.
oh my gosh,
Hadoop.
It is Hadoop, but it's what is the other word? Anyways, but if you're still on the older version of prior to Unity Catalog, then it's still Delta, but the catalog name's different. So anyways, Delta across the board here until you get to obviously Power BI, and then Power BI, I'd just say native.
Yeah.
For that.
And actually there is, isn't it a Vertipack under the DAX stuff in Power BI?
I think it is.
Yeah, I think that's why I've got it in there, because I've got no idea why else I would have put it in there. So I think it's the Vertipack engine when I was looking at it years ago.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
So I have a question for both of you. Native means native to the technology that is on the row above. So here would be native to Power BI, and okay. And also a commentary. Shane, you said at the beginning CSV. I think you said it's semi-structured. CSV is very structured.
Not when I define it.
And that's an argument for another time.
Yep. So I have some anchoring statement definitions of structured, semi-structured, and unstructured that I use repeatedly. And
those are, yeah.
Yep. And so what would happen is I'd tell you my anchoring statements, and then you tell me yours. And then we know that when I say CSV and you say CSV, we're treating them slightly differently. And that's okay, because we've both given, our languages, right? And they're slightly different. And then we have to deal with the fact that I'm speaking English and you're speaking French, if that, that makes sense. Because we're speaking a different language and we're trying to interpret, and that's important. But yes, we're both right.
I think I'm more right than you.
I've got training. I was going to say I've got training slides that says I'm right, but then you've got training slides that says you're right as well. I can guarantee it. So, okay, all right. So let's go back. Okay, so I just want to show you. Quick. Yeah.
Metastore. Hive Metastore is the Metastore.
That's the one. Yeah. Gosh,
I was going down that path. I was like Hadoop, Hive. What's the word? Metastore is the word.
I was going to go Zookeeper, but then I was like, no, it's not Zookeeper, because it's it's not doing. Okay.
Could be Beekeeper. Okay.
Let's do what's the difference between landing and history now, and then I'll describe why, and then I'll show you how I can break the template in about 10 seconds with our architecture. And I haven't figured out how to solve that problem, but everybody's going to hit the problem that I'm going to break it with. So the first thing is, Ramona, looking at my landing and my history,
yeah,
how are they different?
Oh, well, I mean, it's all there, right? So
Yep.
I'm not sure what you expect me to answer.
So,
So
so tell
what
me.
exactly?
So landing is different to history, and you asked how they're different right at the beginning,
No,
and now you have the answer in front of you. Play
okay.
back to me
So
why they're different.
I don't think that was my question though. It's what do you keep in one over the other? Because the way you the way you explain it first, I wasn't sure. Well,
Mhm.
you know, so the way I understand it now is that in lending is how data comes, it arrives there, and in history is how you keep information for auditing, for lineage, for stuff like that. So,
Yep.
but what I did not, so I think the explanation and how I imagined it in my head, right? How I made that translation, that mapping was not clear.
Okay. So
So,
apart from
so
that, apart from that, tell me what other differences there are for my landing versus my history. Yeah.
repeat the question, please.
So tell me what differences there are between my landing and my history with the information that's in that sheet for you to use. Like just call out one of the differences.
Well, for instance, you mask the data in
Yep.
history, and well, I see there the native in the search format and Google BigQuery, which I'm assuming has to do because you do all the lineage and all the stuff in there. You need to use the querying tool as opposed to just the storage. So
Right.
there are
So
technicalities there that require
good.
a differentiation.
Right. Yep. So Chris kind of explained why we don't mask in landing, right? So that we actually can pull it out of a secure place if we ever had to go and see
Exactly.
that.
Yes.
And yeah, that you might have thought that we put it into BigQuery because we want the ability to query it and all that kind of stuff, but that's not why we do it, right? And this is where it gets interesting, right? Because you're going to, like Chris would say to me, why the hell you got cloud storage there and not BigQuery, right? As a technologist. And the reason is when we land the data into cloud storage, it gets ingested into BigQuery for free. It's this weird Google thing, right? I landed in Google Cloud Storage, and the cost of compute to get it into BigQuery is free. We don't get charged for it.
Okay.
If I push the data directly into BigQuery,
you
I have to
pay.
pay for that compute. Yeah, I have to pay. And so we went, all right, the ability, and there's a native ingester, right? We put it into Google Cloud Storage, and we basically tell Google, ingest it into BigQuery. It's like just one command, and it does it for us. So we built that into our logic to save money. Now, what happens is we have a problem because when you bring in CSV data that's semi-structured, and it goes into BigQuery, it's using the BigQuery parser, and it doesn't like non-American dates. Yeah. So there's data that will land that actually fails the ingestion process, and we can't control that. So we have to write all this wrapper logic, all these events to say, if it failed, go and change the file. Yeah, if we bring in an XML file and it's not line delimited or whatever, BigQuery won't inject it, right? So we go like, and this is the cost of an architectural decision is like, oh, we'll save heaps of money. And then, okay, now we're going to spend that money somewhere else to automate and do the error detecting. And so that's why we did it that way. But that context of why we made that decision is as important as the decision we made. And the ability for you to see that things are different, which means I made a decision typically, is the important part. And that's where I see the value in the spreadsheet. Yeah. And the Google Sheet is that we can have that conversation.
Okay. But somebody who does not know the context, right? Because they're not watching this, they would not know. So that information would need to be somewhere for people, or this is a quirk that you are exploiting, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, as you say, you pay the money somewhere else because you have to do architectural decisions, and the opportunities for failing in all the little pieces that put together are also increasing. So in the end, my question is, are you really saving money or?
No, we do. Because we
Okay.
have to just write a bit of code, and then every time a customer brings data in, we don't pay for it, and that is saving us a shit ton of money versus us paying compute. So that's
Okay.
like if I move to
Okay.
Snowflake,
So,
and I think Snowflake will go pay for ingestion, then that layer is going to cost me more money than BigQuery. But it's a good point you said. So in the old days, we used to do architectural decision registers using TOGAF, right? It was a template of why you made the decision, and we don't tend to do it anymore. So maybe we should be binding architectural decision templates to each of these cells, like why when it's changing, like why what's the context of me making that decision if I'm a large enterprise, so that the next person can come along and see why.
Yeah, because you intend this to be documentation, so then there has to be a change management component of that. And actually, now that we've addressed this thing, I want to ask Chris, because he doesn't have a distinction between landing and history, and he doesn't keep the data masked. So how does that, you see, Shane has the history part of the bronze masked, but you have only bronze and it's unmasked. So I see a big question there, because Shane is addressing those issues, right? And you are not. The way I saw this exercise. So
like silver and higher would be masked, right? And yes, Shane is masking his data that's being persisted in his history, but that data is also still persisted in his landing. It's not like the difference is that mine's one layer, and then we're masking it after that. The difference for Shane is that he has, because he's using GCP, he has the ability
separation.
to land that raw table, and it immediately creates that separation between the two.
Yeah. So if we didn't have that GCS to BigQuery thing, then we probably wouldn't have landing. Yeah, because it has no value to us unless it's different.
So did I answer the quiz?
Yeah, you did. You did. Right. Okay. So let me break the template for you in about 2 seconds flat. Right.
Yeah.
So, right. Let's go back to my one. Okay. So when we use a data collector that takes data from Google Analytics, GA4, into our platform, we use a native data collector from Google. Yeah, it's a data transfer service. So we can go into that service and we can say, here's my GA4 environment, push it into the Google Cloud for me, right? And it does all the heavy lifting and does all that work. But the only endpoint that it pushes to is BigQuery. Yeah, I cannot push it to Google Cloud Storage.
So you end up going straight to here.
I end up going straight to here, to BigQuery history, right? Yep. However, that breaks all my rules. Yeah. So what we do is we actually have another layer, which we call shared. Yeah. And that is a BigQuery layer, right? And the data's is optional, right? Which actually means I lie about my landing because it's optional, right? It's enforced for everything, so it's advised actually, except for Google Analytics data coming into our platform. So that's all good, right? I could put that in there and it makes sense, except we have this concept of sharing, right? If you think about it, there's this table, and I want some other part of my system to see that table, but I don't want to have to replicate the data. Right? I don't have to copy it. So in our platform, I can go and pick a consume table and I can share it. Yeah. I can say it's shared and it uses exactly the same technology we use for this. But the problem is that shared layer is now on the right of the consume, right? Because it's sharing a consume table. And this is where the template breaks down, because the template assumes a linear path from left to right. And when you work in lots of organizations, like Chris's copper is kind of like it, right? It's kind of a layer that's optional, and it's not really left to right, but it kind of is. It's kind of, if we go back to your one, Chris, your data goes left to right all the way until gold, until silver, and then it kind of goes into copper or it goes into gold, right? It's like a decision tree. And the template doesn't deal with that. And I think me trying to introduce that complexity of if then else paths for our data flows or the data layers becomes too complex, right? So again, it's like a problem that needs to be solved to make this an accurate series of documentation for data layers. Yeah. So that's a problem that I haven't fixed yet.
It would be, it would have to be a much larger map of yes. You'd almost have to like lucid chart out the whole thing, and a bunch of, instead of just, diamonds and squares, you would have like full tables of all this information, right?
Yeah. And then I have to graph database of nodes and links and relationships between objects, and then that just gets too complex for now, right? So I have purposely not done that work in the spreadsheet because it's too hard at the moment. All right.
Can you do a mermaid diagram? Those are getting more and more complex. So
put it in LLM
exactly.
Yeah. All right, we're an hour and a half in. We've got lots of other ones, so we're never going to get it finished in this time frame. But we've kind of shown the pattern of the template pattern.
Yes.
Just to get the pattern in there twice.
Can I make two, since we're at the end here, two jokes that I kept my tongue, I bited my tongue throughout. So, Shane, probably I mentioned this to you before. The way your Kiwi accent when you say template, it sounds like template. So it's actually really perfect for what we're doing here because it's a team and a play, right? Team play. And the second one is how Chris was repeating raw. So I was thinking about Lady Gaga, Bad Romance. You know the rah. So it's late. It's late. 9:30 p.m. where I am. So
yes, me too. So we have a couple of questions I want to hit real quick.
Let's go.
First one is a question for Shane. If you were dealing with big data, with consistent schema drifts and needed to store the data in Bigtable, would you build the gold layer in Bigtable or move the data to BigQuery or for analytics?
I typically see Bigtable sitting on the left as more of a data lake capability rather than a serving consuming layer. But actually my answer right now is, having worked with Google Cloud for 7 years, there is often a risk that they will deprecate a piece of technology if it doesn't have traction. Bigtable came out and it was a great idea, but I'm not seeing a lot of development in it. I'm seeing a lot of development in other of their database technologies. So right now, this is my personal opinion, I have no access to the internal Google stuff, but I would start to worry about how long Bigtable is going to be around before another Google service takes it over. And my guess would be Spanner. So that would be, I'm not answering your question. So that's what I worry about. So actually, how would I answer? So actually, what I would say is grab the template, fill out your architecture on it so that I can understand what you're talking about, and then send me a link, and then I will have a look at it and have a conversation with you about where I would put Bigtable. Yeah, because you're kind of treating it as a consuming layer, and I kind of always think it as a history layer in my language, and I'm kind of intrigued about that use case. So that's actually my answer. Lock it in, awesome. Chris.
Nice.
It's a game show joke, by the way. Yeah. You'll find out. Yeah.
All right. So this one is, any thought on legacy EDI or EDI fact or similar formats, suggestions, options that would be a better modern alternative?
Yeah, it's a question for you, Chris, because that's technical stuffs.
Honestly, because I grew up self-taught, I don't know that I understand EDI and EDI effect. Broadcast.
Oh, okay. I haven't done it for years, but my understanding is it's basically a messaging format for data interchange. So think of it like a hub sub kind of thing, but it's it's like XML. I think it's like the language, not the technology. But of course, like the technology came around it. So I don't know. Pub sub maybe, MCP in the future, because that's going to rule everything, right? Become the messaging interchange for everything in the world. Yeah, I don't have enough experience with EDI or EDIFACT. Yeah.
The only thing I could think of is like service bus messages, right? Using service bus messages to transfer those messages back and forth.
Yeah, so like a pub sub kind of pattern, right?
Yeah.
Technology. Yep.
Sorry. And for those of you that may not know, like a service bus, like Azure would be kind of service. You use service bus messages to do that type of work.
It's a hard one.
Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a great question. And I think it would be a great question for great time to mention, because we always, the three of us, love to mention this particular group, the practical data community, during our calls. So
someone there might know, actually.
Yes,
there will be somebody there who's done 10 years in that space and knows it inside out. It is a great community for data experts. Yep.
Yes. So for those of you that have not joined the practical data community, which is not my community is separate. My community is the Gamble Data Sphere, but the practical data community is Joe Rice's community, and it is full of brilliant people that have been around the data game for many years, some of us for many decades, and there is a wealth of knowledge and people here that definitely can answer your questions. So I would encourage you to join this community. I'm going to put a link to it in the chat.
Bring it on.
I promise you that Joe is not paying me for this particular promotion, nor does he charge for you to join the community. So if you are interested in joining an awesome community of brilliant data people.
Did you just change the timeout period on the invite link?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really good feature to know. Damn.
Yeah. If you could change it to never, so that you don't have to keep regenerating
them every time somebody. Well, there you go. There's something. I didn't miss lots of things today, but that was something that's going to save me hours over a year.
Cool. I promise you somebody on that will know. So if anybody has any last minute questions, now's the time to ask.
We'll push a link out to the template, the Google Sheet template. That's open source somehow to everybody. So feel free to grab it, copy it, give it a bash, give us some feedback, tell us what we need to change. If you want to kind of join us in making it better, as rather than just providing feedback, actually be part of updating it. Let us know, because I think I need help on this one.
Shane, last time I checked, it had only read access. So
yeah, so you have to copy it to make a copy for you. Otherwise, if you
when you make
your architecture.
When you make a copy, would it give you write access?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a Google Sheets thing. Yeah, if I give people edit access, then as you're
you
updating
don't.
it with yours, update somebody else's, and that won't work. Yeah, so just when you go in there, you get view only, and you just go copy, and it will. You should have permission to create your own copy. Which, of course, now we're orphaning it, which isn't great. because then I've got to keep reversioning it. So yeah, if we get traction, like I said, I think I'm looking forward to a group of people helping me turn it into something more versionable, stable, and releasable, and all those good software engineering-y things. But for now, Google Sheets is a good way of hacking it and see if there's any value.
Yeah.
Cool.
And for those of you that need to get in touch with us, want to get in touch with us, my information is on the channel. Gonna knock over my Databricks cup. My information is on the channel. You could reach Shane on LinkedIn, and Shane and Ramona both on LinkedIn. And is there anywhere else that you all want them to get a hold of you other than or is LinkedIn maybe the best option at this point?
Yeah, and they may be interested in reading our Substacks or not. They are a bit different. I mean, no, Shane's is very on topic with what we discussed here. Mine is a bit different.
Yours is more
I think-
considered, mine is more shoot from the hip. That's how I describe it. You think about what you write, I just write. And Chris, you tend to just video what you're thinking about in a considered way. So you're different to both of us as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm actually going to grab this. Speaking of, where's it at?
But Chris puts a
Speaking of
lot of thought into his videos. They are very well thought and produced and all of that. So, and you always have the thing that you're always pointing.
Oh, actually, do you use a teleprompt, Chris, or not?
I don't. I'm old school, so I actually use a Word doc that I sit right behind my camera. And I'm scrolling through that because then I could do it at my own speed because I have a tendency to ad lib a little bit, and then that way I could stop when you see both of my hands on the screen. I'm probably ad libbing because I'm not having my other hand on the mouse sitting here scrolling through.
The reason I ask is Joe Reese has just released a Git repo with a vibe coded teleprompter that goes on an iPad. So yeah, have a look at it because it's maybe you can do it so that the LLM can follow the speed of your voice, and when you ad lib, it just stops for you. I don't know, mate, that'd be a cool way. But yeah, have a look at it because he kind of released it as an open source vibe coding thing for teleprompting for people that make content. So I was like, wow, that's kind of. I don't use a teleprompt, so that's not going to help me. But yeah,
obviously these are not teleprompted, but
no.
or I remember the word metaphor, right?
So I don't think we'd ever write down the conversations we have in a way that we would have them.
Well, I don't know how we would even be able to keep up with it, right? I mean, would invest time on that, and then we're still not gonna read it, or it's we cannot do scripted anything really.
We can't even stick to our time constraints, nevertheless, of script. So.
We did. We didn't take 2.5 hours.
No.
I treat this as a win.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yes. We were sticklers to that.
Yeah.
We did.
We did better than last time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because it was supposed to be an hour and it lasted 2. So.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Well, again, thank you all for joining tonight.
Thank you.
Shane, Ramona, any last comments, thoughts?
This was a lot of fun, and not at all as I imagined it would go. So I picked up a lot of stuff, and it was a lot of fun for me. I'm even feeling better, right? I wasn't sure.
And we've got the subject for the next pub conversation, right? Which is why CSV is semi-structured and not structured.
Oh.
So
yeah. So then Chris is gonna do he's gonna be the moderator between our
I'll be
debate.
the moderator between the two.
and I'm going to put my helmet on, so when you whack me around the head, telling me I'm wrong and proving me wrong, I don't have to listen. La, la, la.
Sorry, they're coming out with the meatballs too. Have you seen this? Do you know what Shane? Do you know what meatballs is?
The movie.
Yeah, Mel Gibson.
Chris,
you know.
maybe you want to stop the live streaming?
Yeah, I do. I've got to stop the live stream. You all have a great evening. Thank you all for joining us. Had a lot of fun. My comment about Mel Gibson's Meatballs is just in reference to some of Shane's stuff in his background there. Anyways, but we will see you all again next time. Again, thank you for watching and thank you for the interaction. Thank you all so much for asking questions. Thank you all. Have a good night.